Hey guys, Zor here at ZorGameGeek.com. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button below. All right, today we're going to have another discussion about rules elements and playing elements in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Today we're going to talk about the interaction between dark vision and light. In prior editions, there was two different types of ways that creatures and player characters could see in the dark. There was dark vision, and then there was ultra vision. In 5th edition, they got rid of the ultra vision, which essentially allowed you to see ultra UV light and ultraviolet light. They got rid of that. It's fine. So with dark vision really requires the player and the game master to understand the rules behind light and obscuring areas. So I have here my handy DM screen. And just going to read the rules here that they have written for lightly obscured and heavily obscured areas. Lightly obscured. Creatures have disadvantage on wisdom perception checks that rely on sight. That also imposes a -5 penalty on your passive perception scores. So you have disadvantage. Whenever there's disadvantage, it's a -5 to passives. That rely on sight. And examples here are dim light, patchy fog, moderate foliage. Then we have heavily obscured. Heavily obscured, vision is blocked. Creatures are effectively blind. What does dark vision do? Dark vision basically upgrades your character's vision one step up. So for your characters, if they are in darkness, heavily obscured, but they have dark vision, they are instead under lightly obscured conditions. So they have disadvantage on wisdom or perception checks. But if they're in lightly obscured, then they are fine. It's as if they are in no obscurement at all. Is obscurement a word? It is now. They are basically in bright light and have no impact on their ability to make checks. Now, the other thing to keep in mind with lightly obscured areas, if you're in heavily obscured areas and you're using dark vision to upgrade it to lightly obscured, your characters with dark vision do not see in color. They are only seen in black and white. The other piece that's important here to note is that if you do not have dark vision and you are in heavily obscured areas, darkness, you are effectively blinded. So let's read the blinded rules here from my DMG, not my DMG, my Dungeon Master's Guide screen. A blinded creature can't see and automatically fails on any ability check that requires sight. Okay. Attack rolls against the creature have advantage, and the creature's attack rolls have disadvantage. So that means that if you are a human in darkness going up against a creature with dark vision, you are doubly screwed because their attacks against you have advantage and your attacks against them have disadvantage. But if you have dark vision and you're in dark area, then the only impact is that your wisdom perception checks are at disadvantage and you're seeing black and white. So if there's a specific element of your dungeon that requires you to be able to see the color difference, that sort of thing. But the other important piece here is on the blinded condition, attack rolls. So we're talking about your fighters and your archers that are shooting at things. But it also applies to your spellcasters. So if your spellcaster is making an attack roll, and that includes spell attack rolls, then they have disadvantage on targeting that creature. But you need to check one other area because many of the spell descriptions do indicate that the caster has to be able to see the target. So let's give for example. So an example here is the standard cantrip for a lot of sorcerers and wizards, Firebolt. So language says you hurl a mote of fire at a creature or object within range. There's nothing there that says that you have to be able to see the target. They just have to be within range, and then you make your spell attack roll. But Charm Person is a saving throw. So without doing a deep dive here, I'm guessing that there's an important distinction between the spell attack rolls that have disadvantage in darkness versus things that require a saving throw, because Charm Person says you attempt to charm a humanoid you can see within range, that you can see. So if you're in complete darkness and you don't have dark vision, you ain't seeing jack, and therefore your Charm Person isn't going to work. Your other spells are probably not going to work. Even things like Fireball. I got D&D Beyond open right here. A quick plug for them. I'm going to scroll down to Fireball. I'm in second level spells. Let's see what Fireball has to say. Classic spell. A bright streak flashes from your pointing finger to a point you choose within range, and then blossoms with a low roar into an explosion of flame. So here, this is an area of effect save spell that does not require you to see the target. You're choosing a point within range. So rules as written, it happens and it explodes, even in the dark. As a game master, I might impose a little bit of checks there to see a scatter rule. Roll a D8 and then roll a D4 to see if you hit the target or if you're off. Yeah, well, I would do some things there on that. But be sure that you don't, in your games, let dark vision allow your characters to just get off scot-free. This also makes more important here cantrips like light and holding torches and where you have those, because they also have a radius of where there's bright light, dim light, and then darkness or heavily obscured. And these are all important interactions. And this is important because I have my own 5th edition game going on, Curse of Strahd, and we're just started and we're in the Death House and they're about ready to go down in the dungeon and there's no light down there. And I know that the dwarf cleric is going to have the light cantrip up and going. And we have some with dark vision and some without. And I'm going to be insistent when we get into fights that they keep track of how far away they are from the dwarf as to whether or not they can see. Conversely, if they're attacking at range at people in darkness, they have disadvantage on those shots because they are heavily obscured. All right, guys, there you have it.